Hi, hello everybody.
Good morning.
Hi.
Welcome to our security webinar. I'm presenting today this webinar, and I'm not doing that alone. I'm doing that together with,
Hi.
am I right?
My name is Nico. I'm also an RSC like Carl.
Yeah. I'm Carl Pennings, RSC for the Benelux, and on my left,
I'm Jeremy, also part of the RSC team.
yeah, nowadays it is security is an important topic. A lot of people work from home, from their home office, and you have to open your firewall and your NAT routers to enable communication to your home office, from your home office to your building. And that's why we want to talk about security and how you can make your system so secure as possible. So we have a few topics: the design possibilities, the configuration adjustments, and how to monitor the system.
Let's start.
Yeah, what should you not do, Nico?
Always put my PBX in the internet or not?
No, we don't put the PBX directly in the internet.
Okay.
No,
we do not do that.
So do not expose it directly in the internet. But how are you going to connect our system to the internet then?
Maybe we use our reverse proxy?
That's a good idea.
Okay.
So enable and restrict secure access for several protocols like HTTP, HTTPS, LDAP, LDAP-S, and also H323. Of course, also for SIP and SIP TLS. We enable the reverse proxy so that people from the outside can have a registration to our internal system.
On which base we are doing that for HTTP, for example? Via DNS name?
Via DNS name, of course. You open the DNS name and you redirect this DNS name to your PBX system.
And for LDAP?
You need to use a by name.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
So far I remember.
And
my
H323, we use the gatekeeper ID from your PBX, which is also the domain name. Yes, and for a SIP also it's the domain name. Right. Okay, what else?
What way it's a good reason to use domain?
Also, we advise to use an SBC, a session border controller. In order to secure SIP trunks to your telephone system, you should have a session border controller, and the best way is to put this session border controller in your either in your DMZ or have it directly running on your PBX system. And why are we doing this? For a few reasons. One is security offloading, for media pinholing, for header manipulation, also for media relay, media anchoring, and some of the topics, maybe you want to say something about it, Jeremy?
Regarding the SBC in general, so protocol translation, what does this mean about the protocol translation? Because it was listed yeah.
Well, to the outside world, we talk to a provider and we talk mainly with SIP to the provider. So you're doing registration to your SIP provider, but internally you have a registration to the Innovaphone PBX, and we talk mainly H323.
Okay.
Of course, you can do it with SIP as well, but mainly we do it with H323. So you have a translation from the SIP protocol to the H323 protocol. Then also to the outside world, most providers do not support secure RTP. We support secure RTP, so your connection to your provider is with normal RTP, and internally it's with SRTP.
So if I understood correctly, this protocol translation, if I imagine myself in the SIP interface configuration, this is basically the option when I set no encryption and stuff like this. If I want to send the media unencrypted to the provider, then I can decide directly on this at the SIP interface to deactivate such features. And this defined SBC in our interface, correct?
Correctly.
Okay. And this has nothing to do with how does it call again? A codec.
Transcoding?
Transcoding.
No, we
we don't speak about transcoding. We speak only so it's a codec is not a protocol. Just
correct.
Okay.
We also talk about security offloading, and what do we mean with that, Nico?
Security offloading means we can put the SBC in a DMZ to extract it from the PBX, and maybe if you have an attack, maybe a DOS or a DDoS attack, then your SBC is only affected of this, and not the PBX. The PBX is running as usual.
So the load from the attack will be on the SBC and not on your PBX.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we can go on.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, like we said.
And of course, it's also possible to put your reverse proxy in the DMZ, the demilitarized zone. Why is it called demilitarized zone? Because it's the section of your network that is between two firewalls. So like you have a border between two countries where there is a border side and there is a side, no man's land, and you have the next border. And in this no man's land, what we call DMZ, you can place your reverse proxy, and
it's not direct in your LAN.
So
it's outside of your internal LAN, but it's also not directly in the internet.
It's a safe area inside your network.
Yeah. Okay.
If possible, split the different services like reverse proxy, SBC, PBX, turn and stun on different devices. And why should we do that?
Yeah, it's clear. It makes sense to separate it, because if one of the service will fail, then only this one will fail, and not the whole system. I think that's the main advantage of this.
So we're not telling this just to sell more and more boxes.
It's also important, but for us.
But we can also do this on IPv4, and then it doesn't cost any money.
Of course, right.
Yeah, because such services, sorry, Carl, reverse proxy, SBC, and turn and stun, and also apart the PBX, they don't require any license in order to
correctly
use them.
So if you put them on an IPv4, it doesn't cost you any money. Of course, you can put them also on our gateways. Then you have to buy the gateways. But the nice thing is that you have it separated on different devices. It's also offloading process time to different devices, and important also for monitoring and debugging. You can monitor on a dedicated device.
Yeah, right. Okay, what's important? What have we do from outside to inside?
Well, if you want to work secure, you don't want to have the standard ports open like HTTP port 80. You want to restrict that to port 443, which is HTTPS. The same for H323, where you use normally port 1720.
Yep.
If you do H323 TLS, you use port 1300. Exactly the same for SIP and SIP-S with port 5060 and 5061.
If the devices can do that.
Yeah.
Supports
if they
TLS,
support SIP secure, you can restrict to only SIP secure. And also important and often forgotten, the LDAP, because nowadays with GDPR, you don't want to provide LDAP binding unsecure, because somebody could see your username and password and could have a connection to your LDAP server and can extract all the names and numbers and maybe email addresses and so on.
Right.
And that's not GDPR secure. So use port 636 LDAP secure. And activate only required ports to listen and redirect
On the reverse proxy.
on the reverse proxy.
Okay. Ah, yes, call filter.
Yeah, even more important about security. Security is not only about attacking or extracting information, but a lot of criminals outside it, in the big bad world try to register a device on your PBX. And why do they want to do that? So that they can call for free, or they can call to really expensive numbers, like the amusement numbers. They cost several euros per minute. So it's important to define call filters in your system and redirect filters, so that if somebody registers from the outside to your system and they try to call, that the call is blocked by your call filter.
But not only for calling, also for call forwardings. It's also very important.
For the redirects, correct.
Why is this important for the redirects?
Well, let's assume that somebody comes in your office building, is cleaning your desk and puts a forward on your desk phone to a family or a phone number far away, which costs some euros per minute, and they call in the evening to that number, and the call is redirected to this external expensive number. And that's why you want to restrict that as well.
So you should also lock your phone with a PIN code, which is also possible.
It's also possible, right.
But call filter is really important, so because in this case, such frauds, the best security is your insurance about this. And since you can also establish call directly from the IP-Phone, for the test and debug purpose, it's really important to restrict such call filters according to destination and also working time.
Then we have also IP filters, which restricts from which networks your phone can register.
Okay.
So also important topic to use.
And not only on the PBX, you can also filter the reverse proxy, from which networks the reverse proxy can access. And also, of course, if your customers have firewalls with geo-IP filters and so on, it's also an opinion to activate this to secure the customer's network.
Correct.
Oh.
Then even when somebody tries to log in, our myApps login page on the PBX is accessible for everybody.
Of course, we want that.
Yeah, that's because you want to log in. But let's assume somebody knows your username and your password. What happens then? You use two-factor authentication, and only the person who owns this account is able to enable this login by this two-factor authentication. So the best security is to enable this two-factor authentication.
And how it's working? What have I to do then?
Well, actually, when you log in the first time, you will get an email, and you have to click in this email to verify your login. If you have already a session on another device, you will also get a pop-up on this device, and then you are able to verify this login directly with the other device.
Okay, so a valid SMTP configuration is needed.
Yes, you need to have an SMTP configuration in your system, otherwise it cannot send you an email.
Okay.
Then the second topic for login, because you want to make your life as easy as possible, you can configure the net logon, the single sign-on feature. This enables you to log in the PBX environment with your standard Windows username and password, so your Windows credentials.
Nice. Okay.
So that makes the life a little bit easier. You don't have to remember several usernames and passwords.
Yeah, I think this is a good feature. Okay. Let's go on.
Yeah, then of course important when somebody tries to hack your password, you should have a password that is not
Dictionary
very
attacks and
easy.
so on. Yes.
Yeah, scripted text. So make sure that your password has a kind of minimum length, and it also combines not only characters but also numbers and special signs. That's something you can configure in our system as well.
But what about the password outside user admin in general? What is for you a good password?
For
It
me?
would be better at best a phrase or completely random chars, or because this also something.
I think it's a philosophy. I think that the customer must decide what he wants to use. Some say, okay, phrases from book texts and so on may be a good idea, or something else. What's not a good idea, of course, is the name or the company name and so on. That's not a good choice for a good password.
You should be able to remember it by yourself very well,
Right.
but it should be difficult to guess by others.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So, what do we have about security protocols, and how do we encrypt our RTP? Well, there are several possibilities. You can use SRTP, a secure real-time transport protocol, but there are two different key exchange methods. Can you explain them, Nico?
Oh, I don't know, but I can try it. Of course, we have the SDES. SDES is an hop-to-hop encryption. This means your phone is an encrypted way to the next hop. This is maybe a gateway or a PBX. And from there to the next gateway or PBX or telephone, it's another encrypted way. This is not so secure like the DTLS. The DTLS is an end-to-end encryption. It encrypts away from the phone overall the infrastructure to the other phone in band, so that you have an encrypted way overall, and you can see it on the phones also if you press the key, and you can see the keys on both phones, and you know, okay, this way is encrypted from end to end.
So you
see
see
a
also
kind of lock in your
Yeah.
display. Yeah.
So hop to hop means that I can do man-in-the-middle attack.
Right, correct. We do not see it because on my side it's another key than on the other side, and you don't know if it's encrypted all the way.
And when you have configured one way, does the other not work, or how does it work in terms of negotiating between the systems?
If you have one phone that can encrypt and you have another phone that cannot encrypt,
For example?
of course, it's a negotiation. If one phone cannot encrypt, then the whole call is not encrypted.
And this is done during the signaling, right? About to know which
for
phone.
For SDES, it's done in the signaling. For DTLS, it's done in band in the call, in the RTP stream.
Okay.
And if a phone doesn't support SRTP, our system always sends an invite that gives the ability to use AVP or SAVP, which is unencrypted and encrypted, and the other party, the other phone, responds with on the invite with the possibility that they support. Well,
okay. Yes, of course. If no encryption there's a part that's not cannot encrypt, then there is no SRTP, of course. And like Jeremy said, DTLS is the better choice because it's an end-to-end encryption.
And DTLS, SSDTLS, also the better choice because nowadays we use often browser technology, WebRTC, and WebRTC uses this SSDTLS protocol. So you know that your browser technology can communicate with the phones.
Correct. Cool.
So the browser, if I understood you correctly, browser is mandatory to have DTLS only. They don't do SDES
Right.
at all. Okay.
Yeah, if you use a browser-based softphone,
Yeah.
it's always an encrypted communication. If you use our native client and you use there the WebRTC technology within our native client, it's still possible to use unencrypted. But on the browser technology, it's always encrypted
Yeah.
because you don't know where you are with your browser.
Yeah, sure.
And you want to have this communication secure as possible.
Okay, and that's why WebRTC defined that DTLS should only be used. Okay.
Yeah.
What else?
Yeah, what else? Well, we have also access via TLS, so the transport layer security. And there you have different keys that you can use. And we advise to use a key that is not larger, not bigger than 2 kilobit. Why is that?
Because every change to a bigger key comes to a higher load of the CPU. It's six times more from 1K to 2K and so on. And for this, if you have a big key, then you have a big CPU load. And as you hopefully know, our gateways works with 800. The bigger one with 800 megahertz. So most load or more load is going to encrypt the TLS sessions, and then you cannot have so much people on this PBX because they have to do with this encryption.
So basically, the encryption with a bigger key takes more process time,
Right.
more CPU resources, and that is not a benefit if you want to have much users.
Right.
So you choose for a lower key when you need more users on the system.
And it will be always a compromise for the VoIP because, as we all know, RTP means real-time protocol. So if we can't do real-time communication, then you can lead to delay in the communication and so on. And it's also important because IP-Phone is also involved in such TLS cases, and the IP-Phone doesn't have like also high CPU or really powerful CPU, so that's why it will be always like this in a VoIP field room, correct? In order that you cannot have like a really strong key in order to have a better encryption or stronger encryption, I would say, because you will always face this real time.
But for the RGP, it's not this key used for the RGP. There are ciphers, TLS1,
The ciphers,
1.2.
We come to that.
come later to that.
On the next slide. Yeah. Also important when you configure CDR0 and CDR1 in your gateway, you send this information to an app platform or somewhere you want to log this information.
Right.
Make sure that you do that with HTTPS so that nobody
Also
in the
secure.
middle can read the information.
And the same for recording, of course.
Of course, you want to have the PCAPs encrypted as well when you send it somewhere. Then, of course, when you use all this TLS mechanism and certificates, it's based on date and time. Your certificate needs to be
That's enough
valid,
time, yeah.
and so you have to configure a time server or at least a time in your system that is in a valid range.
Right. Correct. Because every certificate has a time life, and we check if the time life is correct. And if we cannot check it because there is no time, then we cannot prove if the certificate is okay, and then the authentication will fail. Right.
That's also on the time server. I'm always recommending to the reseller in France to put as a first time server a public IP and not a domain, because if in case there is so domain resolution issue, then they can still access to a time server, and as a secondary time server, then you can use domain. But it's just my own recommendation, so just
Yeah.
Normally DNS should work. It's
Yes,
if DNS doesn't work, you have more than one issue.
yes,
Exactly,
that's
but-
not only a time problem.
At
then.
least you can still register the phone, you can still operate the minimum things
Yeah.
for the VoIP. So.
Okay. Oh,
Oh, nice one.
Oh, this one I don't like.
802.1x.
This is for Nico.
right from me. Our devices can authenticate itself to the network with 802.1x, and this can work with a certificate and also with a username and password. So you can authenticate your devices on the network. So nobody can put an unauthenticated device to the network to spy network devices or network traffic. Right.
Yeah. Then important, if admins log in, you can configure an automatic logout after several minutes, so that your login is not staying open.
That's depending to the advanced UI.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
log into the advanced UI, right?
Yeah. Because we're talking now about settings in the advanced UI.
So this is by default
you're
not
right.
not configured. So you have to define it.
Yep.
So basically, it's deactivated because there is no value.
By default,
By
you
default,
log in and your login stays open.
Yeah,
The
okay.
session will not be closed.
Okay.
So you need to configure a value that it will be
After
closed after several minutes. What you also can do is to require a certificate.
Mhm.
And then your admin login will need to have a certificate based on MTLS
Mhm.
to even connect to the system.
Okay, so you get rid of the password basically. So
To
Or it's
authenticate
password
yourself
plus
with a
certificate.
certificate, not with username and password.
yeah, okay,
You must authenticate with a valid certificate of your username, and then
okay.
you can log in with it. Okay, let's go on.
Disable native authentication. What does that mean, Jeremy?
Well, that is a good question. The native authentication. So I think it's a basic authentication is completely deactivated, and it's restricted for a certain network range, as far as I understood. I'm correct, Nico?
You can accept, it's another choice, yes, you can accept an IP range from where you can log into that, and disable native authentication you enable the phone-based authentication, not the integrated authentication.
So basically restricts the admin UI access.
Yes.
Correct.
Correctly.
So you need to be careful with this setting.
All these settings you need to be careful, and you have to know what you are doing. Otherwise, you should have a backup. It's always a good idea if you do some configurations like that, and maybe you cannot access your PBX anymore. So you have to know what you are doing, and please do backups before you do something
Just
like
a
that.
small thing here, if you disable native authentication and you don't set an IP range, an exception, what happens? So you are...
It's for all.
completely-
It's not only for this IP address.
Yeah, so it means that nobody can access anymore to the...
No, you
admin
don't need
UI.
to accept. It's you can say it's except for a special network, or if there is nothing in there, then from all networks.
Okay, but you can still access over devices,
Yep.
for example. Okay.
Oh, now
Configuration.
V13R features.
13.
V13. V13.
13 is in German.
Practice your English.
Sorry.
Joking. No, important is of course that you have a very secure password for your
Yep.
admin login. And in the past, we know that phones were attacked from the outside when there was let's say a NAT port open to your phone for reason of remote administration, and they forgot to close this NAT port. They had an unsecure, maybe a default password on the phone, and then it was possible to log in on this phone from externally.
Yep.
So to make sure that that is not possible anymore, we use the distribution of a secure password over all the devices, and that is what you can do within devices, within your domain, and then your devices configuration. You can distribute this password to all your devices.
And what's happening if an admin go to the advanced UI and change the password of one of these devices?
That will work for maybe a few seconds or a few minutes, depending on when the next distribution will take place. And then this password is overwritten again. So we often get a ticket about it.
Right.
and then people forget that this password is distributed by the system itself to all the devices.
Right.
So if you want to have a certain gateway with a different password for any reason, make sure that this is in a different category or is in a different domain and it's excluded from the password distribution.
Or you can define a second local account also.
Also possible, yes.
That's
Not
possible,
sure if it's a security,
but the more accounts in the system, the less secure it will be.
Exactly, yeah.
And why do you need a different password on a gateway? It's probably most of the time because people are used to go to the system directly and log in via the advanced GUI. But you should use more and more the devices. You can easily find all your devices. You have one central point of administration. You go there, you find your device and log in. Even you don't need to remember your username and password because you're already logged in the system as an administrator, and you have immediate access to your device.
Correct, yes.
Yes, that's why this password is called an emergency password during the install.
Yes.
Okay, we have talked about it in the earlier state.
Yeah, you can also change TLS profile via the device configuration as you wish. You can distribute time server with the device configuration to all your devices. And you can also activate SRTP in the device configuration. And with SRTP, you can also select a profile that's telling you to use normal, fast, high security or strict security. And the differences are shown in the table in our slide. So with the TLS normal, we can use all TLS versions. The TLS fast can also use all TLS versions. With the high security, we only use TLS 1.2 because that's more high secure. The same is with the restrict. Yeah.
There's also in point DTLS that shows that for our DTLS encryption we use TLS 1.2 or 1.0. And maybe you ask yourself why normal and fast is the same like the TLS high security and strict. That depends on the ciphers you are using, and there is a wiki article in our wiki how to security works with Innovaphone, and there is a table. It's much bigger than here this little table, and there you can see which ciphers we are using in this different profiles.
Actually, it is that in the fast we use ciphers with a smaller key, so that the phones are able to have a quicker RTP connection, quicker translation from secure to non-secure.
Okay. Self-service, yes, we have in self-service.
Yeah, about self-service. Well, one of the nice features is that if you configure a system, you even could say to people, create your account by yourself. Actually, this is what we do on our community system, because we created our community.innovaphone.com and we didn't create user accounts on it. Everybody who's listening today, they created the account by themselves.
Hopefully.
Probably they did.
Yes.
I don't think somebody else did it for them. In the configuration of our system, you can define what users can do by themselves. So they are able to create an account by a web form. They are able to reset the password by a web form. And it's even possible that they can delete their account by a web form.
And where can I do that? On which place I can do that? This activation of these features?
Good question.
PBX manager.
You're right, Jeremy. In the
Yes.
PBX manager, you can do it.
Just a regular plugin. It's just the AEP. So basically, the configuration application. The AEP is an application which can configure the server side of the application, I would say.
Yeah.
So here, if you click
in the
users app.
In the users app.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there are also settings for self-service in the users app itself.
No, these are in the users admin app.
Okay. And what can I do there? That's also important for, I think, the on-premise and cloud installations and so on.
You can allow the user to provision himself a telephone. And regarding the security aspect, it's important because if a hacker got an account and can provision a soft phone, for example, then he can establish calls, do calls. So, and that's why we can restrict the people to provision his phone, and also to edit the name of the person in order to don't have like identity stealing issues. So like you got an account and then you rename your account with the name of the colleague of your internal users.
You can do it on the users admin app in the hamburger menu and then go down.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we have two
Under
different
permissions.
places to do this. So in the plugin, so which we configure in general, and then also on the administrator side, so with the user admin app.
In that part of the user admin app, you also see the different languages, and you can change the text that is written there. So you can provide a different text for your own company if you want to.
So when you create the account and when you reset your password, you mean, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Let's go on. Oh.
Restrict IP phone usage. Why is that? When is that used, for example?
For example, if you want to avoid mistyping configuration, means like when the cleaning person is coming to clean the desk or something like this, and it will clean also the phone, it can also press some keys by mistake and go to the administration panel, for example, and do like misconfiguration. Or if you want to prevent also an unknown person which could have an access to your office to get access to the administrative pages of the telephone. So that's why you can restrict such
Also,
configuration at the IP phone.
Yeah. Also, if you provide a desk phone for kind of public service, or let's say you have an IP phone in prison environment, and an inmate can make phone calls to the outside world, they should not be able to change configuration settings on the phone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I got the case in a good example in an hospital, and it was with the situation we had to clean the phone to deinfect the phone, and it was also a lot of misconfiguration with type and administration, and it happened one time where the phone was resetted, so factory resetted, and then you can provision again, and the phone is not working anymore. So it's here on a security aspect also, but on a usage aspect, it's important. And thanks to the devices, Nico, it's available in devices, or but what devices? The devices itself?
In the devices configuration.
Okay.
Correct. When you go down there.
Devices up. Okay.
Chris is asking, where do you configure the auto logout? I've seen. Thank you, Chris. If you have questions, you can also do your questions in the Slido chat on the right of our presentation, and colleague of us is answering, or maybe we can answer here. I think this can we answer here.
Yes.
The logout.
It's in it's in an admin UI under general, and then you have admin submenu. So general menu, where is displayed the MAC address and general information, and then you go to admin, the section where you can define also other admin accounts, and then here you have the new option, I would say, because I think it's came with the new.
With the 13.
13, right?
Yeah. Nice that we already got a question, and we like to have more. But before you enter a question, make sure you have entered your name so that we can define who is asking this name, so that when we cannot answer it straight away right now, we can send you later an email.
Yeah, good point.
Okay, let's go on.
Yeah, activate check certificate for the host in the reverse proxy. I think, Nico, you know why it's important to set this check mark.
It's
There are
Nico's
two things you have to imagine. If you check this check certificates here on the reverse proxy, the authentication is done on the reverse proxy and not on the PBX. And it's important that you check it, because if you don't check it on the reverse proxy, but you check assume TLS on the PBX, all of the devices will unchecked have access to your PBX, because on the RP the authentication is not checked, and also on the PBX is not checked, because the certificate from the reverse proxy to the PBX is always the same. It's the certificate from the reverse proxy and not the device itself. Because we split it. The reverse proxy do an session, your phone do a session to the reverse proxy, and the reverse proxy do a new session to the PBX. And for this, it's important that you have checked this here on the reverse proxy, and also checked assume TLS to have a good authentication from your end device to the PBX itself.
So you can trick the PBX. So the PBX will always trust the reverse proxy, and if the reverse proxy doesn't do its job without this option, then it will be completely transparent for the PBX.
Yeah, okay. Right.
And
yeah, we previously also talked about IP filters, and IP filters is something that you also can configure here in a reverse proxy, at least from which networks it is able to connect to a reverse proxy.
So you can say, okay, the PBX trusts the reverse proxy, but also only the network where is the reverse proxy installed can communicate with the PBX, basically, with this option, regarding the registration.
That's the IP filter in the PBX, yes, so that it knows, okay, a registration from the reverse proxy is trusted because it's within an allowed network, and in the reverse proxy you also have the settings that you can define from which IP address ranges you allow a registration to the reverse proxy, so that you can block, let's say, some common areas.
Okay. So here it's important to not forget to only secure everything which is coming from the internet, but also think about the internal network. So if you have Ethernet socket available on a wall, I don't know, in a corridor or something like this, and you need and it's the different network, then you need to secure also the different connection from internet and from also inside the building. This is something that it is also important.
Okay. Yes, we have said it.
Yeah,
it's important thing.
Yeah, we repeat it sometimes, because we know the weakest part is a weak password. So that's why we repeat it. Then also set thresholds for blacklist entries. So what do we mean with that?
If the reverse proxy recognize a bad packet, or the service behind the addressed service is not reachable and so on, or you have wrong password sent and so on, then we detect this as an attack, and you can set a threshold. You can say 20 of these bad packets from an IP from one IP address in 20 of this in 1 minute puts this IP address in the blacklist. So you cannot perform, you cannot access the reverse proxy from this IP address, and you can define in time how long this will be in a blacklist, or if you do not define in time, then it's in the blacklist until an admin deactivates it or put it in a whitelist.
Yeah. So you're permanently banned.
Right.
And from the blacklist, you can also add a rule to the whitelist. So if you see, okay, this is an IP address from a known location that should not be blacklisted, you can add it to the whitelist.
Right.
Yeah, Telnet.
Always deactivated, we know it, but we want to tell it.
It is default deactivated, but let's assume it's activated by accident. Make sure you deactivate it again, or you did some commands via Telnet to the system, deactivate it afterwards, because it's a quite open port to the system where you can send commands to, and that's not what you want.
You should get rid of it in the future. It's not our decision. I know.
Maybe. At the moment there is an option to activate it, but there's no need for that, we think.
Yes, set unknown registrations to 0. That's an important topic. It's default for the version 13 installations, but we see often in previous software versions that the unknown registration is set to a number even higher than 1. And I don't know why people do that, because when you set it to 1, you allow one registration without a password to one object. I don't know why you need more. Maybe they want to register several phones to the same object for
multiple registrations.
Multiple registrations
with an easier way.
Or maybe for hot desking reason. But to create a secure system, make sure unknown registrations is set to 0.
Most of the time what I've seen with my experience, it was misconfiguration. They did not knew really what does mean this option. They did not understood pretty well, even if they read the wiki, everything. And by registration issue, they try to set everything possible in order to register the endpoint, and that was it.
Unknown registrations was important in till V12 for the provisioning of devices. But in V13 we have a new way to provision devices, so we do not need this unknown registrations anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's quite similar for the registrations without password. So also
you really do not do that.
Set that to 0. Then of course set a password in every PBX object.
Yeah, not only user objects, also other objects where you can insert a password, because on every object you can register, and then you can make calls, not only on user objects.
It's like a waiting queue.
Correct, like a waiting queue and so on.
You need a waiting queue to collect calls and to present some announcements, or maybe IVR. But a lot of people don't know that you can also register a phone to that same object. So
it's possible, yes.
Create a password in the object, and even take out the hardware ID if you don't want to have phones registered to that object.
Right. The hardware ID is the username, and if there is no username, you cannot register at this object. Correct. Okay, let's go on. Yeah, there's an LDAP module on our PBX or on our gateways, and this can also be secure.
Yeah, we can secure with LDAP-S, and you can define the IP addresses where you can have the communication via LDAP too. So you can define the IP filters. Then we also already talked about call filters and call diversions. We repeat it again. It is important to configure them and to use them in the users and in the templates. And also important, if you don't use IPv6, turn it off. Because why keep it enabled when you don't use it? It's only an open door.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, voicemail pin. It's also interesting. There's a standard voicemail pin, I think, and it's documented in our wiki.
Yeah, the default voicemail pin, probably everybody knows, it's 8765. Till
now, yes, everybody knows.
Well, thank God, not the whole world is listening to our webinar.
Don't know it.
We don't know it, but I assume it will be a limited amount of partners. Yeah, and you can change the PIN in two ways. One is by changing the voicemail script itself, because the PIN code is within the XML script. If you do that, make sure that you also tick the box that it's a custom XML script. Otherwise,
what happens? Yeah.
Otherwise, if you don't tick that box and you do a next service release update, then this XML script will be overwritten. And if you tick the box customer XML, then the changed XML will kept in place. But that's the more difficult part, the way to change the PIN code. The more easy way is to add this PIN code with a string in the URL. It's in the wiki how to do that, and then you can change easily to a different default PIN.
Yeah, and that's a good idea, I think.
Or you can also inform the user and then request them to change the PIN code from the start. But it's
not
also
every user does it.
Yeah, I know, but it's also a possibility that the user can also, after to change the standard PIN, also define his own PIN code. Then not everyone has the same PIN code, so you can.
Of course, everybody should use a personalized PIN code, and also important to tell to your users, don't use the well-known PIN codes like 4 times 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on.
Yes.
And with a 4-digit PIN code, there are only 10,000 possibilities. But if you choose them wisely, it's not easy to hack a PIN code.
Why it is important to secure my own voicemail? Because it's just voicemail, or there is something more in the voicemail?
You don't know what message is in the voicemail. Somebody could leave you an important message in the voicemail that's only for your ears.
Yeah. But
and maybe they told you a new password, whatever.
But do we have other features like redial or recall features in the voicemail?
Of course.
So I understand why it's also important. So
you can call from an expensive number or fake an expensive number, call there, do a recall, and then go on.
And that's why also the
right
filter is also important here in this case.
Correct, and this will not work if you have a good call filter for forwardings. Then this will not affect.
And also for establishing a call. So at the end, everything is somehow linked regarding security configuration. So filter, voicemail.
Yes, it's a total package, and the system is so secure or unsecure as the weakest chain.
Yeah, use TLS registrations. We have talked about that.
Yep.
In the slides, it's important, of course. All is secure. Use media encryption if it's available, of course. Then yes, use it. And it's not so much a security feature, but we have put it here also. Use, if you can, and standby PBX.
Yeah, using standby PBX is not directly a security concern. It's more about reliability, availability. So maybe something for a next webinar. You know?
Yeah, have a look. Yeah. Okay. Yes, this is the picture for the things we have talked right now. You can change these configurations also in the devices app, in the devices configuration, and there you can put in your primary gatekeeper, of course secondary gatekeeper ID. I think you know about them, but also the preferred coder, and we've talked about SRTP key exchange, what you want to have in that case, and yes, there you can put it. Also there's the recording URL, and as we have talked, put it in it's HTTPS.
As HTTPS, because your phone can be in your home office, so you send your recordings to a server or a WebDAV location somewhere else in your central office, so it will travel via the internet, and you don't want that somebody somewhere on the internet could pick it up and listen to your voice. So send it via HTTPS.
But you can read it also in LAN. You can can be attacked.
Of course,
Also
if somebody has a mirror port on a switch, they could listen to
right.
to what you are telling to your boss.
Safer if you use TLS for this.
Yeah. So, as we will see later on, if regarding the DTLS cipher suite, I would configure DTLS only in a higher cipher suite, not following what device is configuring by default.
Okay. So in general, restrict network for HTTPS for the PBX access. You can switch off the HTTP access. You can also enforce to go to HTTPS.
How can I disable HTTP?
Well, you can take out port 80. If you leave it empty, it's still 80.
Yep.
So you have to put in the 0.
Correct.
So that disables the HTTP port, the default HTTP port. And of course, you can change it also to another port if you still want to have HTTP access for some reason. And with HTTPS, it's the same. The standard port is 443, but you can change it to a different port if you like to.
Yeah. And you can also restrict, I think we have said it in slides before, you can restrict the network who can access this PBX.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's new in 13.1, the native brute force detection from myApps. It's R2? Oh, sorry, my fault.
It's R2.
It's in R2, yes, you are right. It's coming in R2, yes. And what does this mean? You know?
Basically, it's when you try to logging into an account for several times, and if this does not work, so in order to avoid brute forcing attacks, so by dictionary and so on, when you try to find and guess the password, then you are blocked. More you are trying and more it's not working, more you will be blocked for a certain time. So,
yeah. And the maximum time is 1024 seconds.
Yeah, it's a pretty long time.
Yeah, it's already
it can
long.
be, yes, it can
it's
be.
long to wait before you can log in again. Yeah, and will you get a message from that?
Yes, of course. If you have an active session, this session will not be affected. Also important, but then you have shown up a pop-up where you informed about an attack of you, or someone wants to log in with this account with the wrong password. What else?
And then if you know that you yourself trying to log in with a device, you can say, okay, this is me.
Right.
Then it will not count as a wrong login and as an attack. But if it's somebody else, you can say, oh, this is not me, and then it will count as an attack value. Also, the administrator will get a message after.
In the events, yeah. You see in the events the user, and that this user has X times tried to log in with the wrong password.
And if this happens and I'm blocked now for 1024 seconds and I don't want to wait 1024 seconds for the next login, what then?
You have to wait.
Is there no way to...
If you are logged in a session, yes, you can say, okay, log in, but if you have no session...
Can I call my administrator to say, I'm blocked, can you unblock this?
No, I don't think. You know a way?
I thought there was a way, but...
Yes?
I think there is.
Okay, we have to check it, then we will inform.
Let's check it.
But the user itself, so it happened to me when I'm trying to log in on my browser, and because I'm dumb, I'm always making typo mistakes. I'm getting this notification, hey, it was you, and then when I say yes, it resets the timer. and then I can try to logging again. So
if you are logged in, yes.
Yes, but most of the time with my phone, okay, maybe it's because I'm working at
we are
Innovaphone and I'm using myApps, okay, but
not the right word, but we are like nerds, and yes, we have logged in many devices. But if Frau Schmidt on the reception, I don't think she's logged in so much devices.
Yeah, and I just remembered it. As an admin, you could go to the LDAP expert from your user object. And there is a part of the PBX, and there's a part of the PBX session, and there's also a session timeout. You have to recognize it to know it, and then you could delete that part so that you don't have to.
But you have to know what you are
doing.
Yeah,
it's not that easy.
LDAP expert is a pretty dangerous field. So
but it is possible.
It is possible
for the high techies.
It's not an easy way.
For me, I would prefer that you should learn by your own mistakes. So when you're doing mistake like wrong logging, then you have to learn something about it. So
then wait and go take a coffee.
Or maybe you have to self-service activated, and you can reset your password.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's what I did this morning for the community.
Okay, nice.
You see?
One of the most important topics about security is also to create regularly backups.
Yeah.
Because if
you want as admin to unchange this blocking, and you do a failure there, then you need a backup. Yes.
For example, but even when your system is compromised by an attack or a login by somebody else, you don't know what they changed. Most of the times they try to weaken your system. They try to erase, let's say, call filters so that they can do calls to expensive numbers and so on. So as soon as you think there might be an illegal attempt, an illegal login, you want to play back a recent backup.
Yep.
So create your backup. That's of course possible via backup jobs in the Devices app. You can do that, of course, within the backup files on the app platform. But is that a good idea?
Yeah, if you have problems with your app platform, then maybe it's not so a good idea.
I always say a backup is better than no backup.
Of course.
A backup outside your own environment is the best way. So create a backup job to WebDAV location.
Like in NAS or a web server or so on, ask the customer if we have such a device in the network where you can store this backups on a WebDAV device. Maybe we have talked about that. You as partner can give it a managed service to have a platform where your customers can back up their devices on your side, and maybe they pay money for that. Also a good idea.
A lot of possibilities there.
Or you can also download every configuration file and binaries also manually. I know it's not so it takes time to do this. It's not so sexy, but at least it's an option. So
yeah, but regularly automated backups.
Yeah, of course.
You don't want to take manual actions.
Sure. So. But if you have no other option, then it's still an option. So
of course, every backup is better than no backup.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right, and if it's possible, if you make a backup on the customer side, then put it in the backup solution of the customer, maybe on a magnetic band or something else. Then
whatever they have.
Right.
Yeah.
Also a good choice. Yeah. Updates.
Yeah.
Also part of security.
Yeah, maybe some people think, why is updates part of security? Well, in the service releases, sometimes there are some fixes that has to do with security issues. Not often, but
of course
it can be. So make sure that your system is up to date. So create update jobs and let the system run these update jobs.
It's also important if you open a ticket, you will always be asked to update your system to the last state, because there are fixes and maybe your problem is already fixed in such an service release.
Yeah, the issue can be related to a recent fix in an update.
Right.
Especially now more when we are using WebRTC, because it's not our technology. So if there is some security issue in the WebRTC that the browser did a patch, fix it, and then we need to adjust our own software to be also up to date with the current WebRTC fixes, then we will do this through a service release, I assume.
I'm sometimes a little bit surprised when I do an editor session with a partner and I see the part in devices where you can create an update job, and there's only one update job there. Is that a good idea, Nico?
Not always. It's better you don't delete the last update jobs, because if you have problems with the newest one you have installed on the customer side, then and you don't have older update jobs, you cannot go back. If you have the old update jobs in this list, then you can go back to the older one by clicking on
just run now.
Run now.
Yeah.
There is an icon, run now, and then you can go back to the state, because in this update job, it's written to which software version the devices should go in our app store and download the software. So actually what you do with when you go to updates and you say, okay, go ahead and take the latest release. This is what you first do. You check which releases are available and you say, okay, take over this new release. Then nothing further happens, and then you have to create a new update job. As soon as you create this new update job, in this update job is actually a link to our app store and to the version in the app store. And that's stored in your update job. So it's always a good idea to name this update job with a decent name, like update 2, and then the version and maybe also the build number, and maybe even your name,
initials, so that your colleague knows who has created this update job, maybe a date when it's first time run. And if you do that this way, you can easily identify which update job has a previous release or even a release before that. So if you want to go back for some reason for an issue in the latest updates, then it's easy to go back. You just click on Run Now on the older update job, and all gateways and all devices and all phones will be provided with that older firmware.
All except the smartphones. Of course, iOS
and the Bildroot image of the Linux. So this means also that inside my devices stores every version which has been updated, and if I want to roll back, it won't perform the latest update. So it means, okay, I have in a build 1, 2, 3, 4, and the latest one is 5, 6, 7, and then I want to roll back. I'm sure that by this way it won't detect, oh, okay, it's not the latest version updated, I need to update again. So it means like you screw your rollback when you are doing this. So devices is storing also every build number version which has been updated in order to keep it by rollback. Okay, but
if you don't delete the update jobs.
But also update job, you can also by mistake delete it. If you duplicate the update job, you say, okay, I'm lazy. As a good IT guys, we should all be lazy, I would say. And then when you click on the duplicate icon, you have an option, delete the old update job. So be careful. If you use these features, don't untick this option in order to not remove the previous update job. So this is something also important when you duplicate update jobs.
And if you have no internet connection, can you still do an update job?
You can also set up a local app store, and you will have like basically a local repository, and then the devices will get access to this local repository in order to perform the updates.
Nice.
But you have
Can you read it on our wiki? How to do
Yes,
that?
yes, there is a wiki article for the offline update. So a wiki article to set up your own app store, and if you want also to set up the offline updates with devices. So there is, I would say, two different ways. But something is important about security. The device's job, update job, does not include the image of the build root system. So basically, it's called the manager. So you need to be careful because we are also updating on a regular basis this Linux image with the security fixes. So do not forget also to click on the update button of your manager, and then you will see if you have the latest build number of the manager. And if you want to see which kind of fix are included into the Linux image, you can always go to the wiki. Not directly under the roadmap v13 or 2 or 1, but you should go to all roadmap link, and then here you can see the roadmap of the hardware and also from the Linux system, and then you can see here, oh, okay, does it make sense to update to get the security fix, or if we have included the new fixes from the Linux, and so on and so on. So something to not forget. Yep. Do not read only the roadmap of the v13 or 2, but check the whole roadmap.
Okay.
Big topic about update and security.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Also monitoring.
Also monitoring. And nice thing is that in the past we had some tickets and some issues when an app platform run out of this run out of this space. And that's why we in version 13R2 we implemented a new feature that we can show the disk usage of the app platform.
But not only show. This is also important to see. Okay, how much is it?
Of course, when you are on it, you can see. Okay, the system has this usage of 42%. Nice, but you don't know when it's running full. So
you do not look every time on the AP. No. I think so.
I don't.
Every morning when I'm taking coffee.
Yeah, so you can create a threshold in the system. So it warns you when the system reach within 10% of this threshold. And it gives you also warning when it reaches this threshold. Even when it reaches this threshold, it shuts down all applications.
All applications?
Except the app manager and the web server, of course. Otherwise, you cannot connect to the system anymore. But it will stop all apps like users and so on. So your customer will be affected by it. So you want to make sure that you are warned before that happens, and that you take action before that happens. Yeah. So when you get this warning email, you go to the app platform and then find out which app has consumed this amount of disk space and why. And then you have to fix it. And of course, how can you fix it? It's in our wiki.
Of course, yes. There are some examples how to fix what happens and how to fix that. But what we need for that feature, is this active in 13.2 automatically, or have I something to do for that?
This warning has been sent, will be sent by an email. And
so I have to do something.
Probably again an SMTP credentials or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
It makes sense, yes. So make sure that your SMTP tab in the app platform is configured with a proper
mail
server account.
Mm-hmm. So that's why it's important for the first initial installation to give and configure SMTP. And even if the end customer doesn't have a mail server or SMTP server, you can also, as Nico said, provide as a service your own company SMTP server in order to give the possibility to the system to send email for various reasons. So for the voicemail or for the security things, warnings, resetting your password, etc., etc. So don't miss this, because after, if you do not configure this during the install, then it's not hard to configure, but you need to configure it on several interfaces, on an admin UI and on the manager, and it's not that so comfortable to configure afterwards. So I would say, so I prefer to configure it directly right away.
But you can configure also different on different spots. So
exactly,
it's a matter of how do you want to configure it, when do you want to configure it. Of course, it's convenient when you do it during the install with one account, and it will be automatically filled in on all the spots.
Yeah.
But also afterwards, you can change it if you want to use separate accounts for separate reasons.
I personally like the test email, so and error messages during the install. So because such message on the manager, I need to check the logs and so on. So that's why for me I prefer. But you're right, if you want to split different mail services with different mail server or email addresses, then you can do whatever you want.
If you know which internet provider your customers using, a lot of providers provide an open mail server when you're connected directly to this internet connection.
Yeah.
So that makes it easy to send mails.
True, indeed. Yeah. Good point.
There's a threshold. What does exactly means this threshold?
Well, this threshold can be configured between 50 and 98%. So you cannot configure it lower than 50.
Yeah, I've tried it.
We tried it, but it doesn't work. No. For example, in this picture, you see that the disk usage is 42%. If you create a threshold of 50%, you will be warned 10% before this threshold of 50%.
Okay.
So you will be warned
every day
10% before. So it's 5. Let's say the disk is 100 gig. 50% is 50 gig. So we're now on a system usage of 42 gig. So when the system has reached 45 gig, then you will be warned. So you get your first warning emails, and they are sent out several times. As soon it reaches 50 gig, then all apps stop.
It
and
looks like that.
You receive an
then
email.
It looks like that correctly.
And
so
if I remember, you receive an email every hours when all services stopped.
Yeah.
If all servers are stopped, then you receive quite a lot of emails, yes, because your customers influence.
Every hours, right. Okay. So as administrator, if you don't want to get spammed by the manager, check the disk space.
I think if all the services stops on the AP, the customer will also...
The customer will spam you.
Yeah, but it's good hint.
Yeah,
for the administrator. Okay, customer call said, okay, everything is down, nothing is working anymore. And then if he see directly on his email, oh, okay, I see that our platform is full, then you know what he should debug first.
But before that happens, you already get emails as warnings, and you have to take action on that emails.
Yeah, I think so too. Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Before all apps will be stopped.
Yeah.
I would have configured every minute, but instead of every hour.
I think it was a developer who was spammed by tickets with full APs. Okay, I think we have talked a lot about that. Go to the next one.
So
that's also new in 13.2, I think.
Yeah, so the logging application in the v13.1, you could configure the data saving of the logging, so a certain amount of days and line, etc. And this was always stored inside the database system of events. And of course, you could always see the logging as live view. So basically, live view means when you start the logging app, you see directly in real time the logging. And you had a button, download button, and you could, in the past, you could always download logging from the day before or before yesterday, etc. So now, in order to save space and not screw the database system, in order when you are generating a lot of logging, because logging amounts logging generation amount are based off how many loggings did you activated.
And you can activate the logging via the devices app with alarm.
Yep.
And then you push it on all your devices. And
exactly.
if you do not know,
it's not only one system. It's
all phones,
system.
all gateways can send loggings to this database.
So no start from the v13 we do not store the logging in the database of events anymore.
Not by default. You can still do it.
You can still do it. That's why you have the new option, save logs on database. It means, okay, if it's deactivated, you can always see the live view. But if you try to download them, it won't work because nothing is stored. And if you activate this, then logging will be still always available as live view, and you can also download the logging afterwards.
Yeah, but you have to look for the database size.
Exactly, and
it can be increased.
It can increase a lot, and it also the feedbacks from the experience that we had with the support ticket that a lot of disks from the app platform were completely full because of the logging and so on. Because
two things: there's backup.
Yeah, the backup. Backup and logging.
Yeah, right.
And that's why it's important. And be careful if the logging for data protection, data privacy, it's important to store them, or for low regulation. Be careful between the v13.1 and v13.2, we deactivate the storage inside the database. So if you update the system and you want to keep the logs safe in the database, you need to go back here in the main application service, which is called events, to configure the logging option for the logging application.
Yeah.
Go on. Yeah, here you can see the loggings of a failed user, Thomas Valentin. Yes, he's an older guy, and I think he has forgotten his password, and you can see it in the logs. Sorry, Thomas, it was just a joke.
So he's banned for almost 11 times. Yeah, 11 times.
Genau, something like that you can find in your logging. There are 3 more apps, I think, for this: alarms, events and logging.
And logging. Yeah.
Right, where you can use for this, and also certification expirations.
Yep.
Are displayed also in the logging, and that's also a security topic. As I said, if a certificate is expired, then TLS is not working, and that's not a good idea.
Yeah, and secure access is sometimes not possible.
And here you can debug also if a user said, hey, myApps is not working, I cannot logging, I enter the right password, there is a bug. No, you can cross-check here and see if the password is good or not, and then you can reset the password directly. So, but certificate expiration, it's important in TLS, but is there also any reason, like with the Innovaphone certificate expiration? Because this year we have renewed our Innovaphone.com certificate, because there is also new rules on the internet that about the validity of the certificate cannot be that long anymore, and this is not from us, this is something standard. So
if you buy a certificate, also this has a lifetime of 13 months.
Yeah.
1 month is for working.
So now it's 1 year.
It's 1 year.
Okay.
Yes.
1 year.
So there, the standard of the internet reduce also this validity in order to reinforce the security aspect. So be careful about this, not only on...
Let's Encrypt also, and then free
Let's Encrypt is even less.
With 3 months lifetime.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
you have to remember.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there are 3 more topics for monitoring. Who wants?
So blacklist information. So you can get information logging into the logging. I guess blacklist information. You can also see it.
Yep.
And of course, the monitoring inside the reverse proxy admin UI. In the admin UI, you can see also
the counter,
the counter and the list of the IPs which are blacked, which are banned, I would say, or blocked. Logging into of the reverse proxy, so you need to set the option if you want to see the forwarded request or the rejected request from the reverse proxy. This is a security aspect important. I would minimum activate for the H323, maybe not for the HTTP, because with myApps it can generate a lot of logs, but it's always better to have more than not enough. And of course you can still send alarm, and even as you already said in the slide, in the previous slide, via email. And this, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, this has to be done after. This is a manual configuration. This is not set automatically with the V13 installation, like I said. So
that's a separate configuration. Correct.
It's under services
logging, and then you can configure your email address here in order to receive the logging and alarm information. And for the alarm, it's pretty useful because when the alarm is cleared, you also get an email, I think. When it's trigger an alarm and when it's cleared, so you can see also the problem resolution inside your email. I think that was it, or did I forget something about this?
No, that's
what we know.
I think that's quite complete.
Right. So we finished for today. One wish, there is a poll. Please vote if you have fun or if it was interesting for you. Please vote. Maybe we can do more of this.
We like to do more of these webinars, and
but Jeremy says it's not a webinar. What is this? Is it discussion?
I have no idea, and it's a webinar. For me, it's webinar. It's a little bit shorter. It's more formal presentation.
It's more discussion
about security.
What we are doing.
Yes.
Maybe you say us. What do you think? Do you want more webinars or more discussions like that?
We can do two formats. So one short one, because I'm doing also them in French. So for me, it's a time frame for a webinar, but it's only my opinion. Maybe I'm completely wrong also.
But I want to discuss it with you.
Half an hour, 30 minutes, and then 30 minutes question. And here's a discussion. It can be more, so we take like 1.5 hours and talk about an important topic. But I think for such discussion, the topic should also be make sense. So for the reseller, for you guys. So we need the feedback from you. Okay, which kind of topic do you would like to talk about, or you want to see us talking about such topics between the RSC team? And that's why maybe we can do two formats, small one like for each.
But there are 3 formats. If we can, we go out and do a round table. We want to do that, but at this time it's not possible.
So and I just wanted to, before we are finishing the presentation, maybe I was sleeping during the presentation, but did we talk about the priority of the cipher when SDES, when we have this combination on the devices, SDES, DTLS, SDS, we talk about it?
Yeah, we talked about it.
Okay.
You missed it.
I
told you before that I can sleep with the eyes open. I told you. This is a special feature from me. So.
Was it?
Doesn't matter, Nico. It's okay. It's okay.
It's away. Sorry.
It's okay.
But yes, we had talked about that.
Were there some questions that we could go into, or?
Many questions are answered. There's one question from Richard. Our IP filter has an input field with limited characters. It's quickly full, especially because you have to use network masks complete written out. Is there a solution trick for it? I have no idea.
I think we have to check this.
We have to check it and come back.
Maybe it makes sense to do a support ticket about that. Richard, if you're doing a support ticket, and then we can discuss this with the development.
And put your RSC in CC.
Yeah, I think you know your RSC.
I think also.
Right. Okay, no. All others are answered, I think.
Nice.
Okay, if you still
want... How many questions did we have?
2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
Okay. So if you want to leave feedback about the length of this topic, or you want shorter or longer webinars, you can also comment it as a kind of question, so we can read it back.
If you would have preferred also to interact with us, like over the web access conference, it can be also an option. So we've tried with in front of the camera, like we did for for the dialogue, and because we thought it is a good concept and it works pretty well.
Yep.
And
so
yeah.
we do not want to stress you.
No.
But
And
we
I
need
think-
your feedback.
Thank you for watching us.
Nico,
Yeah.
you wanted to give a special thanks, as I forgotten, because
Oh yes, I have a special thanks to Helen, who's my English teacher, that she has elevated me to do this session in
Help you.
English. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Nico.
It was a bit
for
stressful
being
in the
there.
beginning, but
You need to
you
know
managed
that
it quite well.
Thanks.
for Nico
And-
it was the first English presentation, and we are really pleased to have Nico here during the English session. But
And I also want to thank our director and
You do not see him?
manager and everything. Over there
Producer.
is our Simon. He's directing. Yeah, there he is.
In German, you can say Simon. Yeah.
Simon. So thank you very much,
Thank you for your
Simon,
time.
for your time and supporting us.
Yep.
So,
Okay,
have a
then-
good time.
Have a nice
Have a
day,
nice day,
and
and-
until next one.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
See you.
Bye.